Mion told me a few days later that Nana kissed me, but I didn't realize it during all the excitement at that time. I remembered what I was trying to say to Tomitaka-san earlier. There really isn't much of anything here, but there are lots of things you can't find anywhere else. I gained a lot from coming to Hinamizawa, especially at that moment. The crowd's cheers echoed on and on. From the altar set up on the front of the shrine, the drums sounded with a booming echo. It was the finale of the festival.
I'll
be going off ahead then.
おっと。
Uh-oh.
僕も早く行っていいポジションを確保しないとな。
I need to go and get myself a good spot too.
じゃあみんな、後ほど。
Well then, everyone, see you in a bit. Both Rika-chan and Tomitaka-san gave their farewells and disappeared into the crowd.
二人ともお勤めしっかりでございますよ。
I wish both of you the best in your endeavors.
ささ、
Now,
参りましょうでございます。
shall we be off?
リカちゃんのあで姿を見に行きますかね。
Yeah, might as well go see Rika-chan's charming figure.
行こう。
Let's go.
あ、
Yeah.
あれ、レナは
Huh? Where's Rena?
何やってんだよ。
What are you doing? みーちゃん。Save me! Since she was carrying such a ridiculously large stuffed animal, she was being carried by the flow of
何や
people.
ってんだあいつ。
What is she
熊
doing?
の世話で手一杯なんだな。
She must have her hands full of taking care of that bear.
じゃあ、ケイちゃんにはレナの世話を頼むかね。
So, I'll leave Rena in your care, Kei-chan.
私はサトコの世話で忙しいし。
I have my hands full of taking care of Satoko.
誰がミオンさんの世話になるでございますの？
Who would want to be looked after by you, Mion-san?
痛い。手引っ張らないでくださいまし。
Ouch! Please don't pull up my arm. Before losing sight of Mion, I grabbed the back of Rena's collar.
ケイチ君、そこ違う。掴むとこ違う。
Not there. Don't grab me there.
注文のうるさいやつだな。
Always so
ど
bossy.
こならいいんだ？
Where can I grab then? I didn't feel ashamed at all. Rena was ashamed enough for the both of us. I grabbed onto Rena's hand and dashed after Mion and the
置い
others.
てかれる。
We're gonna be late.
早く行こうぜ。
Let's hurry up. Yeah. I hadn't realized Rena's hand was so delicate. Maybe she needed a bit more exercise and nutrition? That wasn't what I meant. Not at all. My ears burned. I tried to keep calm. I repeated the phrase, "Keep it together, Keiichi Maibara," in my mind, but it didn't look like I would be able to anytime soon. I really didn't want Rena to see my face right then, so I pushed onwards, dragging her along without looking back even once. There was already a huge group of people gathered at the altar in front of the shrine. The fire at the altar made it as bright as midday and just as hot. There was a pile of futons worded with sanctified rope in front of the altar. Come to think of it, they did say it was a festival where they did something with the cotton and futons.
ケイチさん、レナさん、こちらでございますのよ。
Keiichi-san, Nana-san, we're over here. Satoko waved her hand from the front row.
お、すまんすまん。
Sorry. Making our way through the mass of people, we reached the spot they'd saved.
どう？ちょっとはレナとドキドキできた？
How was it? Were you able to have a little bit of excitement with Nana?
やっぱりてめえ、そういうつもりだったのか。
You punk. So that was what your plan was? Instead of replying, Mion gave us a perverse grin.
レナはどうだった？
How was it, Rena?
ケイちゃんの手って意外に大きいとか思わなかった？
Was Kei-chan's hand bigger than you thought it would be? Nana turned bright red, puffs of steam shooting out of her. I heard something slice through the air and turned around to see Mion on the ground with a welt on her
Mion.
face.
お前、いつ食らったんだ
Mion, when were you hit?
歯うの、歯とうの間くらいだったかな。
Between the ha and the o of her au, I think.
レナ、照れ隠しに友達を殴るのは良くないぞ。
Nana, it's not good to punch your friends to hide your embarrassment.
レナ、殴ってないよ。知らないもん。
I didn't hit her. Whatever. Oh. Thump. The thunderous beat of the drum echoed, silencing the crowd.
お静かになさいませ。始まりですわ。
You must all be quiet. It's beginning. It was a solemn ritual. Rika-chan entered dressed as a shrine maiden, followed by members of the municipal committee. The elders all looked at Rika-chan and clasped their hands in praise. The only thing allowed to disturb the profound silence was the flash from Tomitake-san's camera.
リカちゃんが持ってるあのでかいのはなんだ
What's the big thing Rika-chan is holding?
祭事用のクワだよ。
A hoe that's used for this festival.
巫女さんしか触っちゃいけない神聖な農具なの。
It's a secret farming tool that only the shrine maiden may touch. It was an awkward shape for a piece of farm equipment, not uncommon for something used in rituals. After reciting a Shinto prayer, Rika-chan approached the pile of futons gathered at the altar. She swung the hoe skillfully, plowing it into the futons. Each and every little movement of this performance probably had to be done in a certain way. Without a doubt, this was a ritual.
今度はなんだ
What's next?
布団叩きかな
Airing out the futons?
あれはね、人間に代わって冬の病魔を吸い取ってくれたお布団を清めてるの。
She's purifying the futons, which sacrificially absorbed winter's illnesses for those using them.
ゲイちゃんのお布団叩きって表現も、まあ、外れじゃないかね。
So, when Gei-chan said airing out the futons, he wasn't completely wrong. Rika-chan's face was already dripping with sweat. That hoe was probably really heavy. She staggered side to side with the momentum of each swing. Satoko looked on, silently lending her support.
心配か
Worried?
リカは毎日お餅つきの杵で練習してましたですの。
Rika practiced every single day with a mochi hammer.
きっとやりきるでございますわ。
She will certainly prevail. Satoko's hands were sweaty, and whenever Rika-chan started to sway a little, she held her breath.
ミオンとかは巫女役立候補しなかったのかよ
Why wasn't Mion a candidate to be the shrine maiden?
リカちゃんにあの重さは気の毒だよ
Feels wrong, having Rika-chan swing around something so heavy.
そりゃ頼まれりゃやるけどね。
I'd do it if they asked me, you know?
まあ、誰にでも務まるものでもないし。
And well, it's not something just anyone could
そう
do.
だよな
That's true.
巫女は清らかじゃないとダメだもんな
Shrine maidens need to be pure after all. Mion drove her elbow into my side. With the thud of the big drum, Rika-chan gave a solemn bow and descended from the altar. That triggered a round of generous applause. After the Shinto priests had raised up the cleansed futons like a portable altar, all the spectators stood up. Following after the priests, we all marched on at a moderate pace. They descended at the shrine's giant stairs in a line.
今度は何が始まるんだ
Oh, what's happening now?
布団を川で洗濯か
Washing the futons in the river?
だから綿流しだってば。
Watanagashi means setting cotton adrift, you know. The procession continued right up to the bank of the stream. A fire was stoked high and it was bright as day here too. People started crowding around it and clamoring.
はい、順番。
Alright, get in line.
並ぶよ、ケイチ君。
Line up, Kichi-kun. I wondered what was up. Maybe we'd get some holy wine? Red and white bean buns?
食べ物じゃないよ。
It's not food.
だから、わた。
I said it was cotton. Ah, but of course. They didn't call it the watanagashi for nothing. I finally understood. The municipal committee members pulled out the cotton from inside the futons and balled it up like mochi, handing it out to people. Nana dove into the line and brought out some for me as well. We then proceeded to the bank of the stream.
ケイチ君は初めてだから、レナのやり方を真似するんだよ。
Since it's your first time, Keiichi-kun, just copy what I do. She held the cotton in her right hand, waving her hand as if to purify it. She touched it to her forehead, chest, navel, and both thighs.
これを3回繰り返すの。心の中では、お社様ありがとうって唱えるんだよ。
You do this 3 times and silently give thanks to Oyashiro-sama.
お社様ってなんだよ。あの神社の神様の名前か？
Oyashiro-sama? What's that? The name of the shrine's god?
うん。南沢の守り神様なの。
Yes, it's the guardian deity of Hinamizawa.
ご利益もあるけど、たたりもあるんだからね。
It brings about both miracles and curses.
ちゃんと敬わないとダメだよ。
So you must be sure to show respect. That sounded like a pretty frightening god. But, well, when in Rome. I was officially a resident of Hinamizawa now, after all. Doing as Nana showed me, I touched the cotton over myself 3 times. Thank you, Oyashiro-sama. Thank you, Oyashiro-sama. Oyashiro-sama.
これでね、体についてた悪いのが、この綿に吸い取られたの。
This way, all the evil that possesses you is sucked out by the cotton.
あとは沢の流れにそっと流してね。
Then you let it gently drift away on the stream, and you're done. Together, Nana and I set our pieces of cotton afloat on the surface of the water. The flowers of cotton blooming in the water had sucked out all the bad illnesses from Hinamizawa and drifted off, disappearing into the distance. It was wonderful, like those floating lantern festivals I'd seen on TV. The best part, though, was feeling like this rite of passage had made me a true resident of Hinamizawa.
"はじめはちょっとした不安だった。誰かを傷つけたいなんて考えもしなかった。それでも不安は孤独を生んで疑念へと変わり、やがて黒い殺意が心を闇に閉ざしていった。戻らない日常。少年は足を踏み出す。その先が奈落の底だとも気づかずに。鬼隠し。信じたいと思う気持ちが生んだ悲劇。流した涙は懺悔か、それとも怨恨か。
While staring off into the stream, I somehow got separated from Nana. I wasn't very lonely, though. I know this place now. This is where I live. My home. It's probably better if I just stay here instead of wandering around aimlessly. Someone would surely find me while I was enjoying the evening breeze. I heard a familiar voice. It was Tomitake-san's. I headed over towards it.
どうですか、富武さん。いい写真はいっぱい撮れましたか？
How'd it go, Tomitake-san? Were you able to get some good shots?
ああ、おかげさまでね。
Yeah, fortunately. Tomitake-san was with a girl. I felt a little like I was intruding.
ケイチ君はどうだったかしら？
How was it, Keiichi-kun?
お祭りは楽しめた？
Did you enjoy the festival? From the way she spoke, it seemed like she was a resident of Hinamizawa. I really should try harder to remember people's faces here. What was her name?
楽しかったです。
Well, it was fun. My face must have given away how desperately I was trying to remember her name because she gave a light-hearted chuckle.
ケイチ君はまだ引っ越してきて日が浅いんだそうだね。
It's probably because it hasn't been long since you moved here.
他の子たちととても親しげだったから、とてもそうは思えなかったよ。
It's pretty hard to believe seeing how friendly you've gotten with the other kids. If that's how it looked, it was probably all thanks to Rena and Mion.
あなたも今日のお祭りに参加して自分がひなみ沢の人間になれたんだって自覚できたんじゃないかしら。
Perhaps you feel more like a resident of Hinamizawa after taking part in the festival today?
どうなんでしょうね。
I wonder about that.
おやケイチ君らしくない返事だね。
Oh, that's not like you. I had tried to get used to Hinamizawa, but there were still plenty of things I didn't know. The faces of people I'd met, for example. Things that had happened in the past as well.
なんだ。
Oh,
その程度のことで君は疎遠に感じていたのかい？
you're feeling left out because of something like that?
疎遠なんて大げさなもんじゃないですよ。
It's not as much as feeling left
た
out.
だなんていうのか。
It's just, I'm not sure how to say it. That incident at the dam construction site. The fighting over it and other conflicts. That terrible incident they pretended they didn't even know about whenever I brought it up. Even though it was in the past, as someone living in Hinamizawa, it wasn't wrong to want to know about both the good and the bad that had happened here.
それを知ることで君が納得するなら、僕の知っている範囲で何でも教えるよ。
If it will put you at ease, then I'll tell you everything I know. Tomitaka-san's smile made me more relieved than I'd ever been. It was hard to think of what to ask when someone said, "Ask me anything," though. Even when there was so much I wanted to
じゃ
ask.
あ、ダム工事について聞かせてください。
Then, could you tell me about what happened when the dam was being constructed?
ひなみ沢が水没するとかいう大事件だったんですよね。
There was a big incident where Hinamizawa was going to be submerged, right?
ダムについては、多分ここの人に聞いた方が詳しいと思うけどな。
I think the locals would be more knowledgeable about the dam than I am.
僕が知っている範囲でいいんなら。
Well, if you don't mind, I'll tell you what I know.
新聞で読んだ程度だけどね。
It's only what I read in the newspaper, though. Tomitaka-san's eyes entered an unfocused gaze as he searched through his memory. Then he spoke.
ダムの計画が決まったのは7、8年くらい前なんだ。
The decision to start the dam project was finalized 7 or 8 years
黒
ago.
部に次ぐ巨大な計画だったと聞いてるね。
I heard it was the next largest project after the one in Kurobe. There were 3 major issues in Japan at that time: improving inter-island transportation infrastructure, meeting the higher demand for electricity, and flood control. There was a boom of dam building due to the massive economic stimulus they provided on top of generating electricity and flood control. Hinamizawa had the right conditions to support dam construction, so it was singled out.
ダムの完成に伴って生まれるダム湖はかなりの面積になったらしいね。
The dam reservoir would have covered quite a lot of ground when it was
この
completed.
ひなみ沢からずっと上流の矢郷地あたりまでが全部沈むことになったらしい。
The entire area, right up to Yakouchi, way upstream, would be
し
underwater.
かし、なんだって人が住んでるひなみ沢にわざわざダムを作るんですか？
But why did they have to put a populated area like
もっ
Hinamizawa?
と他の人が住んでないところに作ればいいのに。
Couldn't they have instead picked a place where nobody lived?
よくは知らないんだが、ダムを作るのに適した地形ってのがあったって聞いてるね。
I'm not really sure why, but I heard that it was just the right terrain for building a dam. Of course, there were protests here in Hinamizawa. Nika-chan had said they had fought. From that choice of words, I had to guess that things turned violent.
裁判にもなったし、議会でも取り上げられたんだ。
There was a trial and it was even brought up before the national
東
diet.
京の新聞にも載ったよ。
It was covered in the Tokyo newspapers too. Mian had told me about all of that as well. I'm sure every resident of Hinamizawa had united to fight together. The feeling of solidarity found here, which could not be expressed properly with mere words, was likely brought about by that battle.
で、いろいろな不祥事や汚職が発覚してね。
As a result, bribery and scandals were brought to light.
ややこしいことになっているうちに工事中止が決まったんだそうだよ。
As things got more and more complicated, they eventually halted construction. If I wanted to know, now was my only chance to ask. It was certainly a bizarre incident that boys my age would be curious about. I felt a little shame from the fact that I was petty enough to have my curiosity piqued by Nana and Mion's refusal to talk about the event. But I figured I might as well ask since I had the chance. Just so I would stop thinking about it so much.
バラバラ殺人ってありましたよね。
So, there was a dismemberment, right?
あったよ。
There was.
偶然その時期にひなみ沢にいてね。
I happened to be here in Hinamizawa at that time,
だからよく覚えてるよ。
so I remember it well. Tomitaka-san's answer was nonchalant in contrast to my hesitantly forced out question.
ちょうど4年前の今頃だったかな。
It was about this time, 4 years ago.
あれも確か綿流しの日だったね。
It was the day of the Watanagashi, if I recall correctly. Debate on whether to continue construction on the dam was in disarray. Scandal after scandal rocked the project near the end. The incident that was the final nail in the coffin for the dam project. A fight at the dam construction site ended in the victim being murdered. Fearing prosecution, the 6 assailants divided the remains into 6 pieces, and each had one. 5 of the 6 criminals turned themselves in out of guilt, but one was still on the run. The right arm he'd hidden had yet to be found. The major details lined up with what was in the tabloid I'd read earlier. It certainly was a tragic incident, but it wasn't so terrible that Nana and Mion needed to hide it from me. Guess they didn't want someone who just moved here to have a negative impression of Hinamizawa. I felt grateful for having friends who worried so much about me, as well as shame for being so interested in it.
当時はダムのトラブルの末期だったからね。
It was near all the end of all the trouble with the dam, you see.
お社様のたたりだって言ってずいぶん騒がれたんだよ。
So everyone was saying that it was Oyashiro-sama's curse.
お社様のたたりか。
Oyashiro-sama's curse, huh? Oyashiro-sama was the name of the god at the shrine that held the festival today, if I recall correctly. I see. Their guardian deity rained divine punishment down on the evil dam construction for trying to flood Hinamizawa.
若い人たちはそうは思わなかったみたいだけれど、
Apparently the younger ones didn't think so.
お年寄りたちはお社様のたたりだと疑わなかったみたいね。
But it seems the elderly in the village never doubted that it was Oyashiro-sama's curse. The woman with Tomitaka-san chuckled mischievously. Tomitaka-san began laughing with her. It was so infectious I ended up laughing as well.
でも、今ではどうかしらね。
But I wonder now.
結構いるんじゃないかしら。
There are quite a few, I think.
若い人にも。
Amongst the youth, too.
いるって何がですか？
A few what?
信じてる人だよ。
People who believe
お社様のたたり。
in Oyashiro-sama's curse. The woman's lips were still curled into a smile, but her expression turned stern.
その後ね、
Then after
毎
that,
年起こるんだよ。
continued every
決ま
year,
って今頃にね。
always around this time.
怒るって何が？
Continued? What continued? Tomitaka-san paused for a second, as if to build up some suspense. Then he whispered to me, as if someone might have been listening.
毎年、綿流しの日になるとね、
Every day, on the day of the
誰か
Watanagashi,
が死ぬんだよ。
somebody dies.
バラバラ殺人の翌年の綿流しの日。
The year following the dismemberment, on the day of the Watanagashi,
ひなみ沢の住人でありながら、ダムの誘致派だった男が、旅行先で崖下の濁流に転落して死亡した。
a man from Hinamizawa who had supported the dam fell off a cliff overlooking some rapids and died while he was on vacation.
奥さんに至っては死体も上がってない。
Speaking of his wife, unfortunately, her body was also never recovered.
ひなみ沢の人間でありながらダムに賛成していた男ですからね。
He supported the dam construction even though he lived in Hinamizawa.
事故当時、お年寄りたちはお社様のたたりだとささやきあったものよ。
At the time, there were whispers amongst the elderly saying it was Oyashiro-zama's curse. The women chuckled mischievously again.
さらに翌年、
Then the next year,
綿流しの晩、
the night of the Watanagashi,
今度は神社の神主が原因不明で急死した。
the shrine's Shinto priest suddenly died from an unknown illness.
奥さんはその晩のうちに沼に受水自殺した。
His wife drowned herself in the bog that night.
神社の神主って、今日のこの神社の神主ですか？
The shrine's Shinto priest. You mean he was from the shrine here? The woman nodded.
村人たちはお社様のお怒りを鎮めきれなかったんだって噂したわね。
There was a rumor amongst the villagers that they weren't able to quell Oyashiro-sama's anger.
さらに翌年、これもまた綿流しの晩。
Then the year after that, again on the night of the Watanagashi,
今度は近所の主婦が撲殺体で発見された。
they discovered the battered body of a local housewife. Housewife? Up until now, all these mysterious deaths were people involved with the dam or who had connections with Oyashiro-sama. With that in mind, could the housewife have been involved in some way too?
その通りよ。
Exactly. The woman stated slightly. No, it was more menacingly.
被害者の一家はね、その2年前に転落死したダム誘致派の男の弟一家に当たるのよ。
The victim's family, you see, happened to be that of the younger brother of the dam supporter who fell to his death 2 years before.
弟本人はまだ生きてるらしいね。
The younger brother is still alive, it seems.
でもやはりかなり気にしてね。近隣の町に引っ越してったらしいよ。
But it did bother him quite a bit, so he moved to the neighboring town. For a while, I stood there with my mouth agape. The battle over the dam construction, with Hinamizawa's future at stake, and the murder at the center of it all. That was all I knew, and that was all I wanted to ask about. But that wasn't all there was to the story. Homicide, body disposal, accidental deaths, terminal illness, suicide, fatal beatings. I'm a pretty level-headed person. I don't really want to believe in curses, but the freakish deaths happened every year on the day of the Watanagashi, and all of them were related to the dam construction? It was easy to dismiss each of them as coincidences by themselves. But when you put them all together, dismissing all of them as a coincidence would defy logic. I don't believe in curses. But every single year, on the day of the Watanagashi, somebody or something makes it happen without fail. The woman chuckled again, as if she picked up on what I was thinking. It felt like she was saying, maybe there was, maybe we frightened him, stuff like that. I felt embarrassed at being read so easily. I pressed Tomitaka-san to continue, a bit of impatience and irritation in my tone.
で、
Then,
その翌年の綿流しの晩にも、また人が死ぬわけですよね。
so someone died the next year,
今
right?
度は誰です？
Who was it that time?
さーてね。圭一君は誰だと思うかな？
I wonder. Who do you think, Keiichi-kun?
は
Hell? The way he said it didn't agree with me. The sarcastic tone ticked me off.
はぐらかさないでくださいよ。俺は結構真剣に。
Don't avoid the question. I'm serious here.
まあまあ、ケイチ君、落ち着いて。
Hey, hey, calm down, Keiichi-kun. I realized when she tried to calm me down that I had been panicking.
別にはぐらかしたつもりはないんだよ、ケイチ君。
We aren't trying to avoid the question, Keiichi-kun.
つまり、
It's just
その翌年の綿流しってのは、つまり、
when you say the next year, that's...
今日よ。
That's today. When Tomitaka-san hesitated to say it, she finished it for him. I broke into a cold sweat. I really didn't like the direction this was headed.
みんな口にしないけど、今夜また何か起こるんじゃないかって思ってる。
Nobody wants to speak of it, but they all think it's going to happen again tonight.
こんなにお祭りで賑わってるのに
The festival was so cheerful, though.
あのね、去年の被害者の主婦は不信心者だったらしくてね。
Well, the victim last year, the housewife, she was a non-believer.
綿流しのお祭りに参加しなかったらしいの。
It turns out she didn't even attend the Watanagashi festival.
今年の綿流しに参加しないと、お社様の怒りに触れるかもしれないって噂。
There was a rumor going around if you didn't participate in the festival, you would incur Oyashiro-sama's wrath.
ケイチ君なら聞いてるんじゃないかい？
Didn't you hear anything about this, Keiichi-kun? I never even heard a whisper of that rumor.
じゃあ、みんなのお祭りの参加は、たたりを恐れて
The reason everyone was at the festival was they were afraid of the curse.
そうなんじゃないかと思うね。
I figured that must have been the reason.
今年の綿流しは、例年になく参加者が多いよ。
There were a lot more people at the Watanagashi than usual.
やっぱりみんな怖いんでしょうね。
I guess everyone was just afraid after all.
お社様のたたり。
Of Oyashiro-sama's curse. I couldn't utter a single word. In this modern age, where we've made progress in all scientific fields shedding light on the unknown and misunderstood, where black and white television has been eradicated and we've sent man to the moon, even with all of our accomplishments, this can exist in modern society.
桜ってことで近隣の町の子供会をかなり招待したらしいけど。
Tons of invitations were sent out to neighboring towns' youth groups to help pad the numbers.
やっぱり一連の事件を受けてあんまり参加はなかったみたいね。
But after that string of events, few decided to join.
人集めに苦労してるって町会の人がぼやいてたもの。
Municipal committee members were complaining about how hard it was to gather participants.
警察もね、過去の事件はすべて別個のもので、関連性はないとしてるみたいだけどね。
Also, the police are treating each case as isolated. They don't believe they're connected.
警備ってことで、私服警官をだいぶ立たせてたみたいだよ。
But apparently they sent quite a few plainclothes officers for security. It finally began to dawn on me why Rena and Mion were reluctant to talk. If nothing happened during this Watanagashi, everything would have been over with and I'd be none the wiser. If nothing happened, all would be well. In that case, it would all end up being just crazy talk. I should have just pretended I knew nothing from the beginning. Then they wouldn't have had to act like nothing happened. And we would have all gotten back to life as usual.
やっぱり刺激が強すぎたかしら。
Maybe it was too much for him after all. The woman ran her fingers through her hair as she sighed.
いえ、そんな、全然。
No, it wasn't. Not at all. I had tried to act strong, but that just served to emphasize how much the information had unsettled me. After seeing how I looked, Tomitaka-san appeared to regret saying anything. Letting out a sigh, he then spoke, forcing an awkward, upbeat demeanor.
まさかケイチ君、 たたりなんて信じてるわけじゃないだろ
Keiichi-kun, surely you don't believe in such things as curses.
そりゃ、まあ、
Well, no.
すべての事件が原因不明で、犯人も手口も謎って言うなら、僕もたたりを疑ってもいいよ。
If the causes of all the crimes were unknown, with the perpetrators and their methods all mystery, then I'd concede the possibility of a curse.
だけど、実際には違う。
But that's not how things are in reality.
どの事件も、ちゃんと警察が捜査して、真相や犯人を究明してる。
Police investigations have already uncovered the truth and perpetrators for all the cases. Hearing him say police made me feel a lot better. It was perfect for repelling the word curse.
例えば、一番最初のバラバラ殺人。
The first one, the dismemberment, for example.
言ったよね。
I told you, didn't I?
犯人は一人を残して全員逮捕されてる。
All but one of the perpetrators were arrested.
残った一人だって時間の問題さ。
It's only a matter of time for the last one.
動機だって酒の上での口論からと判明してる。
The motive turned out to have been an argument they had while intoxicated.
たたりなんかじゃない。
There's no curse.
だろ
Don't you agree? That was true. If it didn't happen on the day of the Watanagashi, then I wouldn't think it was related to the curse at all.
次の誘致派の夫婦の事故死だってそうさ。
The accidental deaths of the couple who supported the dam is the same.
恨みを買う立場だったからね。警察が特に入念に捜査したと思うよ。
He was in the position that made others hate him. The police made a point of investigating from that angle.
それで発表は事故。
They concluded it was an accident,
他殺じゃない。
not foul play.
でも、また綿流しの日に起きたんですよね。
But they both happened on the day of the festival, right?
考えてもみなよ、ケイチ君。
Just think about it, Keiichi-kun.
ひなみ沢に敵が多かった彼が地元のお祭りにおちおち参加できると思うかい
Do you think people with a lot of enemies here in Hinamizawa could participate easily in a local festival?
彼にとっては綿流しの時期は特にひなみ沢に居づらい時期に違いないよ。
It would be especially hard for them to be around during the Watanagashi.
だからわざわざこの時期に旅行をし、意図的にひなみ沢を離れようとしたんじゃないかな。
So they probably left Hinamizawa intentionally around this time of year to travel, don't you think? It wasn't a very clear explanation, but I sort of understood what Tomitoka-san was getting at. So I pressed on earnestly, asking more questions so that I could convince myself.
じゃあ、富武さん、その次に死んだ神主さんはどうです
Then, Tomitoka-san, what about the priest who died after
原
that?
因不明の奇病だって。
The one with the unknown illness.
それも、またしても綿流しの日に。
That also happened on the day of the festival.
神主さんはもっと説明がつきやすいよ。
It's even easier to explain what happened to the Shinto priest.
綿流しのお祭りは神主さんにとっては年に一度の大行事。
The
過労
Watana-
に体調不良が重なったんだろうね。
the Watanagashi is a really big event that happens once a year. It was probably from all the built-up stress.
あるいはもともと持病持ちだったのかもしれない。
Or it may have been because of a pre-existing condition.
でも、奇病ですよ。
But it was an unknown illness.
でも、この医学の進歩した時代に原因不明なんて。
It's hard to believe such a thing could exist with all of our advances in medicine.
大ひれだよ。
It's just an exaggeration.
噂が噂を呼んだだけさ。
Rumors making rumors.
2年立て続けに事件が起これば誰だって過敏になるよ。
Anyone would get worked up over having incident happen 2 years in a row.
急死は確かに不自然だったかもしれないけど、
The sudden death is quite unnatural, though.
こういう死に方をすると必ず警察が検視をする。
Of course, the police ordered an autopsy because of the strange way he died.
で、事件性は発見されなかったんだろ
But there wasn't enough for them to open a full investigation, you know?
本当に偶然の病死なんだよ。
Turns out it was just a sudden death due to illness.
確か、神主の奥さんが自殺してますよね。
The priest's wife committed suicide, correct?
じゃあ、これは
What about that?
すでに説明した通りさ、
I believe I already explained that.
3年目の事件に村人たちは動揺していた。
Everyone was shaken up by the incidents happening for a third year.
信心深い人たちはすぐにたたりだと決めてかかったのさ。
Those who were of strong faith were quick to believe it was the work of a curse.
もちろん、神主の奥さんもね、
Of course, that included the priest's wife.
自殺の際に死んでお社様の怒りをお鎮めするみたいな遺書が見つかったらしいし、
Apparently, they found a suicide note that said something like, "My death will quell Oyashiro-sama's anger."
じゃあ、次の主婦の事件は
Well then, how about the next incident, the housewife?
またしても綿流しの日に。
That happened on the day of the Watanagashi too.
この事件は犯人も逮捕されて解決してるよ。
The perpetrator has already been caught and the case has been closed.
一種の異常者で、ひなみ沢のたたり騒ぎを面白がって再現したと自供してる。
Turns out it was just some nut job trying to continue the legacy of the Hinamizawa curse.
じゃあ、次の年の事件は
Then, how about the incident the next year? Oh yeah, this year is the next year. Tomitaka-san gave a hearty laugh.
もう何も起こらないよ。
Nothing will happen.
今度こそね。
Not this year.
お社様のたたりなんてもともとない。
There was never a curse to begin with.
一連の偶然をあると信じている人たちがそうだと吹聴しているだけさ。
It's just that a group of people believed it was the explanation for a string of coincidences. My internal computer finally got itself back on track. I felt a bit embarrassed by how childish I'd become after losing control and panicking.
僕は圭一君がひなみ沢をとても好きだと思ってることをよく知ってるよ。
I can see very clearly now that Keiichi-kun really does love Hinamizawa.
仮にお社様のたたりが実在したとしても、
Even if Oyashiro-sama's curse actually did exist.
そんな圭一君にたたりがあるなんてとても思えないね。
I can't imagine that Keiichi-kun would become a target. I felt very relieved. I should probably just forget everything I heard tonight. I could eat Nana and Mion tomorrow with the same smile as always. They'd probably also like tonight to end without incident, so they can continue on tomorrow without having worried me. Perhaps seeing my change in attitude, the woman who had been listening in stretched as she got up from the rock she was sitting on.
さてと、
Well then,
そろそろ私は戻らないとね。
I should be getting back.
おっと、僕も少々長くおしゃべりしすぎたかな。
Goodness, I think I may have gone on a bit too long. There were so few people compared to the crowd from before, I could only make out a few groups of family enjoying the cool evening air. I looked at my watch. It seemed we'd talked for the better part of an hour.
圭一君もお友達と一緒に来たんでしょ？
Didn't you come along with your friends, Keiichi-kun?
みんなを探したら？
Not going to look for them?
そうだった。
Oh, yeah.
みんな俺のことを探してるかもしれない。
They might all be looking for me.
女の子に探させるなんてなかなかの罪人だね。
You're quite the scoundrel, making the girls look for you.
じゃあね、おやすみなさい、圭一君。
See you, Keiichi-kun. Have a nice night.
二郎さんもね。また後ほど。
You too, Chihiro-san. I'll see you a bit later. Tomitaka-san seems to be quite the scoundrel himself, so his name is Jiro. After dusting off her backside, she disappeared into the crowd of people still busy cleaning up the shrine grounds. Keiichi-kun! So sorry! In her place, Nana came running over. I could see all the others behind her. Speak of the devil.
悪いケイちゃん。
My bad, Kei-chan.
すっかり話し込んじゃっててさ。
We got so caught up in our discussion. I'd completely forgotten about them while caught up in my own conversation, so we were even.
富武さんもご一緒でございましたの。
My, so Tomitaka-san was with you.
ちょうどよかったですわ。
This works out perfectly.
今日の射的の結果発表がありますです。
We still need to settle the shooting gallery competition.
ああ、そうだったね。
That's right.
結局、ビリは僕なのかな。
So I guess I'm gonna end up dead last. In the end, after my dramatic victory, Rika-chan was the last challenger, but there weren't as many targets left. The ones remaining were all tiny and difficult to hit. She did take her time and aim, but all 3 shots completely missed. She was to end up sharing the loser's crown with Tomitaka-san. However, she did her little meeping cry in front of the owner, and he turned to mush instantly. She was given a pack of gum as a consolation prize. Her methods were a bit audacious, but she did avoid being the loser rather magnificently.
思うにリカちゃんって結構タヌキだろ。
Come to think of it, Rika-chan is quite the trickster.
圭一の言ってる意味がわかりませんです。
I have no idea what Keiichi is talking about.
なわけでビリは富武さんに決まり。
Now then, it's decided that Tomitaka-san is dead last. Everyone cheered and applauded. Tomitaka-san smiled wryly, slightly bewildered.
じゃあ富武さん、覚悟はいいかな？罰ゲーム。
So, Tomitaka-san, are you ready? Penalty time!
あ、忘れてた。
Oh, I completely forgot about that. You're too naive, Tomitaka-san. This is why you've got to avoid losing in our club. Mion pulled a felt tip marker out from her pocket. Oh, it's that.
ミオン、武士の情けだ。
Show him some mercy, Mion.
せめて水性にしてやれ。
At least use a washable marker.
油性は辛い。
A permanent one is too harsh.
油性じゃないとダメだよ。
It just has to be permanent.
お洗濯したら落ちちゃうじゃない。
Water-based marker would come off in the laundry.
なんだい
Whoa, what is this?
お手柔らかに頼むよ。
Please take it easy on me. All of us pinned his arms behind his back, and Mion approached him with the marker in one hand.
キュッキュッキュッ。
But she didn't write on Tomitaka-san's face. She wrote on the shirt he was wearing. You'd better have your big break this year, Mion. Nana took up the marker next. Show me your photos next time, okay? Nana. It was a little heartwarming, and I just had to laugh.
これじゃあ罰ゲームってより寄せ書きじゃないか。
This is more like a farewell card than a penalty.
私は甘くはありませんのよ。
I'm not as soft as the rest.
ちゃんと罰ゲームでいきますわ。
I'll make sure this is a proper penalty. Haha, at last, Satoko. Try harder next time, Rika.
圭一さんもどうぞでございます。
Here you go, Keiichi-san. I couldn't decide what to write, but based on what kind of penalty this was probably the most appropriate. Come back and play again, Keiichi. Tomitaka-san was silent the entire time. At first he was quite bewildered, but now he had a different look on his face.
これを着たまま帰郷するのも罰ゲームのうちに入るのかな。
So I have to wear this all the way back to Tokyo as part of the penalty.
もちろん。ちゃんと着たまま家に帰ってね。
Of course, you'd better wear it all the way home.
次に来る時にも着てきてくれるといいな。
You could wear it when you come back. It would be nice. He appeared deeply moved. Embarrassment mixed with a wealth of other emotions made him turn a bright red.
わかった。次に来るときもこれを着てくるよ。
Understood. I'll wear this the next time I come here.
約束する。
I promise. Everyone cheered and applauded. It was the finest parting gift possible for a buddy heading out tonight. I saw the woman who was with Tomitaka-san standing near the festival grounds. It seemed Tomitaka-san noticed her too and knew it was time to leave.
お連れ様がお待ちみたいじゃん。
Seems like your guest is waiting.
そろそろお時間かな。
Isn't it about time?
そうみたいだね。
Yeah, that's certainly how it seems. Tomitaka-san headed off towards her and seemed to apologize for making her wait. We all shouted stuff at Tomitaka-san. Each time he did, he looked back and waved his hand. Eventually, he faded into the darkness of night, out of sight. It was quite the casual farewell. This wasn't the first time any of us had seen someone off. They had done the same thing many times before.
行っちゃったね。
He's gone.
じゃ、うちらも引き上げるかね。
Well, it's about time we take off too. Rika-chan had to stay behind with the other committee members since they were having a meeting. Satoko was tagging along with her. I headed back home with the usual suspects. The walk back was quite lively, with talk of the day's war stories. Should have done this, should have done that kind of stuff. Nana and I parted ways with Mion, and then it was just the two of us. And we got to my house and I parted ways with Nana as well.
こんな時間だけど、一人で大丈夫か？
It's already pretty late. Are you alright by yourself?
全然平気だよ。
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine.
近いし、走っていくし。
It's close. I'm gonna run too.
変な奴がいたら大声出せよ。
If you run into some weirdo, just yell.
出したら、助けに来てくれるのかな？
If I do shout, will you come and save me? Maybe?
聞こえたらな。
If I hear you. Okay.
聞こえるくらい大きな声を出すね。
I'll scream loud enough so you can hear me. Merrily spinning her arms around at high speed, Nana dashed off. She was fine. In that mode, not even an adult could stand against her. Nana's cheerful presence disappeared, and it finally became quiet again. The curse that not a soul mentioned, even under their breath. The more I learned about it tonight, the more unsettling it became. It didn't show on any of their faces, but they were probably all quite concerned about it as well. But if nothing happens tonight, then it all ends up just being crazy talk. Nothing will happen. Nothing bad. Nothing at all.
どうしたのケイチ、そんなところで。
What's wrong, Keiichi? Why are you standing in a place like that?
中に入りなさい。風邪をひくわよ。
Come inside. You'll catch a cold. It was my mom.
母さんは行った？
Did you go, Mom?
綿流しのお祭り。
To the Watanagashi festival?
結局、お父さんが起きなかったからね。
In the end, your father didn't wake
行
up,
きそびれちゃったわ。
so I missed it.
残念。
Little disappointing. Mom stuck her tongue out with a bit of an embarrassed look on her face. New tips acquired. Hojo couple's falling incident. From the June 1980 edition. On the afternoon of XX at 2 p.m., office employee XX and his wife XX of Hinamizawa village in Shishibone Prefecture disappeared after falling 27 meters from the observatory platform in Shirakawa Prefecture. Police and firefighters searched downstream and discovered the body of XX at around 7 p.m. that evening. His wife, XXX, has yet to be found. The search has run into difficulties due to the effects of Typhoon 3 from the previous day. It appeared a railing at the observatory that the X's leaned on had broken, causing them to fall. The groundskeeping staff was questioned by the police in regards to facility deterioration and if park maintenance was performed properly. The terminal illness death of Shinto priest Furure. From the June 1981 edition. On the afternoon of X, around 10 p.m. in the X district of Hinamizawa village in Shishibona Prefecture, the Shinto priest of the Furuta shrine passed away after an existing condition he was recovering from suddenly worsened. Parties close to the deceased said he was suffering from anxiety issues concerning the festival, which was to be held that day. Also, after X's death, his wife X went missing, leaving behind a farewell note. The police and local youth association continued the search. However, given the presence of the farewell message and the fact that the Onikakushi marsh is said to be bottomless, they have run into difficulties. Housewife murder. It wasn't reported in the newspaper. Radio log. This is Okinomiya Station, calling Unit 3. Unit 3, please respond.
3号です。感度良好。
This is Unit 3, loud and clear. Backup is heading your way. Hold position until further instructions. Over.
はい、3号了解。
Roger. Unit 3 acknowledged. Requesting no headlights. Requesting radio silence.
今、先生が到着しました。運びたいそうですがどうしますか？
Station, the doctor has arrived. I want to carry it away. What's the order?
どうぞ。
Over. Acknowledged. Leave it to the doctor.
はい、了解です。
Affirmative. Understood.
ああ、応援も到着しました。
Backup has arrived.
先に写真撮らせた方がいいんじゃないですか？
Shouldn't we let them take a photo first?
外車、もう無駄だと思いますし。
I think the Vic is done for. So that is going to be everything from this extra long episode of Higurashi When They Cry Onikakushi. I hope you all enjoyed it. Can't wait to see you again next week. Thank you. Bye-bye!